Good morning, my name is Sigurdur Bogason, and I have been the acting project coordinator at the University of Iceland for the duration of the project. And my colleague at the university is a co-author of this presentation, which is given to summarize and give an oversight of what the project is about. And then my colleagues from the different consortium partners will drill down into a deeper discussion of the individual outcomes. We will not be able to talk about all the outcomes, so we urge people to visit our website and follow the project in that way to get a broader reach in terms of all the research we have conducted. But we have captured, I think, in this conference, majority of the key highlights of the work. And so I will move into just to give you overview of what we will be talking about. It's the project work, what the VALUMICS project was about, quickly introduce the case studies and the focus of the project. And the main element was to understand the dynamics of the food value chains. And we are looking at IG, the governance, decision making, behavior, material flow, environmental impacts, the consumer issues, economic analysis, modeling and risk resilience modeling. We did as well a logistics model. And then what we have been quite busy with in the last period of the project is the future scenarios. And what was the project about? We started actually with 21 participating organizations. One partner dropped out after the first period, but we continued with 20, 18 from 13 European countries, and then 2 Asian partners. One of them, Vietnam, was funded by the EU grant, but China had their own funding from the Chinese Ministry of Science. So this was the consortium, and we were looking at different issues, focusing quite a bit on the European food chains, but like Vietnam and China looked at their own food value chain issues and slightly different case studies. So 52 months, as Adelma said, and total grant of about 6 million euros. And the project is ending now on 30th of September, after 52 months. So what were the key objectives of the VALUMICS project is to provide tools and approaches to enable decision makers in food value chains to evaluate the impact of strategic and operational policies aimed at enhancing fairness, integrity, resilience, and future scenarios of sustainable food value chains. And we have always looked at the decision makers as also integral. That means also the decision makers in the food sector itself, whether it's farmers or processors. And then we have the level of policy makers as well as decision makers for the food system. So during the project, we have been more and more looking at a food system approach, using food value chains to really study the system. So the VALUMICS project structure is depicted in this diagram. And we had 4 phases. We started on a groundwork analysis, then moved into case study work, and then we moved into the modeling and exploration and data collection. And then, as I said, in the phase 4, we have been doing the synthesis and scenario analysis, how to transform the food system to a more sustainable regime. So this links quite nicely with the farm to fork and the Green Deal policies of the European Commission. So I hope that we can contribute to this discussion and ongoing process in Europe. So what we did, we have, sorry, I wanted to go this direction. We used the case study work to really connect all this. We had these 5 main case studies, wheat to bread, dairy cows to milk, beef to steaks, salmon to fillets, and the raw tomato to processed tomato. These are just examples of food value chains where you could study through the different activities and tasks, what are the dynamics of the food value chain. So this crosses through all the work packages and all the phases, though at different times and different timings. So the in-depth study in the case studies may vary a bit. And then we, as I mentioned before, we had some different case studies in Vietnam and in China. So the suite of tools approach to develop the outcomes, because it's a complex project with many different tools that have been used, both methodological studies and models as part of the tools that we have been developing. So the outcomes can be discussed. We started by doing food system and policy analysis. We also launched co-creation workshops, studying how to prioritize the case studies and where to drill down in more depth. And we also talked about and discussed and have published reports on the EU policy and many of the issues, like the fairness issue that we chose to drill down quite deeply, has actually been also covered in recent UTP legislation by the European Community. So the converging results have been coming through, and hopefully will supplement and add to the dialogue in Europe. Then we did the case study analysis, we did the information and material flow, life cycle analysis, governance analysis, and quite a considerable economic analysis. We also used system dynamics approach to analyze the basic behavioral aspects of the food chains, and this has then been used to provide inputs to the modeling in the case studies. So then we also had a considerable effort on the consumer behavior to understand those and how to really impact the behaviors. Then we went into the modeling phase, where we did the logistics optimization model. We have modeling agent decisions, where we used the system dynamics information to go into agent-based modeling and focused on fairness. And also we have done work on employment and risk and resilience. And in the last phase of the project, we're doing quite a bit of work in the foresight scenarios and transition pathways, how to really change the food system. And this also results in policy advice, and we have been producing recommendations in this last phase of the project. So we have published reports. Most of these will be in the public domain, and as soon as they have been approved by the Commission in the last period, we will be putting more projects out there, and we publish them usually through the Senado facility, so we can actually make them publicly available in addition on the website. And then we also know that Cordis platform of the Commission will also put the public reports into the public domain. So we disseminate on different levels. And then we also have taken some of the deliverable reports, which are quite technical, and transformed them into more easily readable project reports. So they are more targeting the people and not only the scientific interested parties. And we have focused, as I said before, on these keywords that you see on the arrow. And if we start with fairness, we decided to take a big attention to this, and this linked to the progress on the UTP legislation that has now come into play in Europe. So fairness, and we needed to understand the governance and policies behind this, and we did quite a bit of the economic analysis to understand the price transmission and basis of unfair trading practices. And my colleague Ivan Durik will cover this in more depth in his presentation that follows. So also we discussed with the stakeholders how they perceive issues of fairness, and this also has come through into co-creation activities. And then we have been collecting data, primary data, as well as using secondary data to do the analysis. Sustainability as a theme for the food system has become also a bigger and bigger part of our outputs. So as we have been looking into the issue of sustainability, and then we are talking about all three dimensions, the economic, the environment, and the social. So this will be covered in part by presentations later on, so I'm not going to talk too deeply about this. And this is I think, an evolving theme in all food system development work and research. We did as well work on resilience, and we developed, or one partner developed a model. We will not cover that specifically in this series of presentations, but we did do a simulation model that has been put through in public domain in reports. So resilience was part of what we did. And then we also focused on integrity. And this links to the transparency issue about food data. And we experienced sometimes difficulties to get the data from the food sector to understand basically all the drivers in the system and the barriers. So this is a topic of interest, and one of the solutions is somehow to create means and policy guidance to greater transparency of information in the food system. And this will be touched upon in another presentation. So how to make food systems sustainable, it means that all actors will have to act together. And only by having information out there can we really push the system in the right direction. So in the last phase of the project, we've been developing a series of briefs which are simplified communication documents, taking the complex issues from the research work that has in many cases been published through scientific papers and technical reports, to make it more easily understood by the general public and food sector stakeholders. So, and we have also launched this through social media campaigns. And if this works, I can just show you a brief. We have produced videos with many of these briefs to promote them on the social media. And you can see here the channel that we store these videos on, so you can follow up by checking for VALUMICS, and then you should find all the videos. I will now play just a part of one video. From this short presentation video, the focus is to simplify the wording and try to get the key messages out about the research. So in the phase One, we did this food system analysis and policy and governance analysis. And as I mentioned, fairness and sustainability came into play in these briefs. So please check the briefs out. They're all available from the project website, and more actually are in the pipeline, will be uploaded in the next coming days. So these cover the case studies that we mentioned before. So different briefs cover different case studies, and sometimes more than one case study. And we did also the material flows and LCA on 3 case studies: salmon to fillets, dairy cows to milk, and beef to steaks. And there will be a presentation on the LCA analysis and environmental hotspots and market matters. So this is an interesting outcome of the project. And if people want to read the detailed reports, they are as well available. The briefs are like a window into the research. And in the phase 2, we did the case study baseline assessments and the economic analysis. And this will be covered in detail in a follow-up presentation. And we covered the raw tomato, salmon fillets, wheat to bread, dairy cows to milk, and beef to steaks as an example of the outcomes of the project. And then we did quite a bit of work on consumer behavior studies and how to nudge consumers and affect behaviors. And this will be covered as well in 2 presentations that will follow. So the idea is how to really affect sustainable food consumption, and what is the role of the consumer in this activity, because they actually pay for the food, but are they empowered to really move the food industry to sustainable practices? This is an ongoing question. So this covered different case studies. And then the modeling and scenario exploration, we did foresight scenarios and the transition pathways, and this linked together the activities on the modeling and the food system thinking analysis on specific cases. And now in the final phase of the project, we've been quite busy on the synthesis and policy analysis, how to compile this into the briefs. We have now on focus, the last deliverable in the project is deliverable 8.4 that you see a snapshot of there. And this will also be published, and this collates all the briefs into policy recommendations. So this one hopefully will be done by the end of September, and the briefs will be annexed or part of this deliverable. And then we have exploited the research through scientific publications, and we have published in peer-reviewed journals and conference proceedings over 20 papers, and the pipeline is still ongoing, and some of the papers will be published post the end of the project, and many partners have indicated that they will continue exploiting the data that they have been working on and creating more scientific papers. And also we have published some of the research in trade journals. It's actually the food sector may read more frequently than the actual scientific papers. So just examples of some of the journals that we have published in. And to sum up, looking ahead before we start the next presentation, we are looking now to the project exploitation, how to really publish as much as we can from the research work, and this will happen now as well as a follow-up after the project. And we will maintain the website and make these publications coming through the pipeline available for continued period after the project. And at the moment, we are hoping to be able to maintain the website for 3 to 4 more years post-project, and by then everything should also be available through Senado open access platform and the Cordis platform. So all of the historical outcomes of the project will be maintained in the public domain for a long time. We are still working on how to really exploit the data sets and modeling tools. And this is what we'll be doing and concluding on in the final week of the project. So how to really make sure that everything is exploited in a good way. So, and also the consortium partners have been collaborating to develop follow-up joint projects to be able to continue working together. Maybe not all the same partners, but at least we want to really continue doing what we discovered, a very interesting theme on the food system development and sustainability, and expand on the VALUMICS knowledge base. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of an opening for the project. So if you still want to follow up on the newsletters and news coming, sign up and follow the website and social media links, which we have used quite intensively now in promoting the briefs, for example. So I would like to thank you and stop my sharing